want to call this video the sentimental voice, because being sentimental is a good thing, I would say, at this time of our lives as we celebrate you, Mom and Dad, your 50th wedding anniversary. And I remember one memory that's very vivid is those Sunday afternoons where, Dad, you take the video, or not the video, back up a little bit, where you take the tape cassette and you tape things that are significant in that's going on at that time period, and you'd send these tapes to Graham, to Momby, to your brothers and your sisters, and it was a lot cheaper than the long distance that it would be to talk to them for a long period of time. And you'd have us kids, or whoever was at the house at that time, say a little something of what's going on in their life, and it was special. And that carried with me growing up, and when we got our tape recorders, of course, we taped TV show songs, TV shows, all kinds of things we did with these tape recorders. And then when I got older, of course, I did a diary of my life, minute snippets every day at the end of the day. And then I know, and I hope you remember, these tapes that I made specifically for you guys, and I put on them pictures, a picture of the cassette and a picture on the tape cassette, and said how significant you were to me in my life. Well, I thought, boy, 50th anniversary, that's a big wedding anniversary. What am I going to do? How can I do? I want to do something to top that. And then all of a sudden I thought, I know what I can do. Since it's the video age and the vlogging age, and I do a lot of vlogging, I'm going to share some memories, special memories. Well, every place has to start in the beginning. And Mom and Dad, when you first got married, as you know, you started in a house here on Buffalo Drive, right here. And this is the house that you started in on Buffalo Drive. Now, significance is, number one, it was your first house when you got married, but also it's probably the least amount of memories that I ever have of this house, growing up in this house, because I was fairly young and you guys ended up building. And so Horseshoe Drive is more significant to me than anything. But I remember Greg, I just talked to Greg a little bit ago, and I really videotaped the wrong house in the beginning. And I'm glad I talked to him, because this has so much more significant meaning and brings back a lot of memories to me, because he said we were up on the right side in those rooms, and he was on the left side, and he said his vivid memory was every time when you guys would leave or something, he would always watch you guys leave from his bedroom. And also he said something about a tree in the back that fell when you guys were on vacation and all that kind of stuff. But it's cool, and now it brings back a lot of memories, very significantly. Actually, when I was a baby, you were going to Mandan Lake Community Church, and you brought us up in this church. And there were a lot of memories that came from this very church. This church is very significant in many different ways. Well, first of all, my brother Mike was married at this church. Mike and Shelley, you remember this church, and I know some of the other kids. Greg, I think you played drums in that church as well, and the vivid memory I have of this church is obviously my mom singing. My mom, you did a lot of singing, and that's, in fact, I really put the dots together. That's how you got the friendship going with Mrs. T in the first place, and Julie, and that's because she played the piano for you in this church. The vivid memory came to me when years ago, after we came back to this church and it was Christmas time, Mom, you sang one of my favorite songs, Sweet Little Jesus Boy, and it was so moving to me, because that song has a lot of emotions. It was so moving to me that it brought me to tears, and that was an emotion that I've really never had before. That music made me cry, so that was a very significant moment. I know it may sound funny to the brothers and sisters today, but that was very touching moment to me and very meaningful moment to me. And yeah, we didn't go to this church very long before we ended up going to Union Lake Baptist Church, but yeah, still a lot of memories in this church. I'm sure you and Dad had memories, because I think, if I'm stand corrected, this was the first church you guys were going to when you got married. Here I am at Duck Lake. Well, it's now the Duck Lake Center, but it was Duck Lake Elementary, my first elementary school. And I remember, especially, it is one of those things that when you're a young kid, it really brings back a lot of memories. And the one significant thing to me here, or a lot of significant things to me, is the first play that I was involved in was the Sesame Street play. And we met back in the gym area. And it really means a lot to be supported by your family. But I'll never forget just that fact of knowing that my mom and dad are here supporting me. And I tell you what, it's an emotional moment to think of that, especially even being here on the grounds of the elementary, knowing how significant education was to us here at Duck Lake Elementary. And you really supported that, Mom and Dad. And over here on the right is my kindergarten class, and the second grade class right there. And I remember that one significant memory always will hold true, and that was, I don't remember the teacher, Mike, you'll probably remember it, but I remember when she spanked you, the paddle broke. And but anyway, Mom, I remember you would always come to my aid when I think it was second grade teacher, Mrs. Robinson, basically knew that or thought I was never that smart, and you always, it really infuriated you that she said that, and that she was actually my favorite teacher in school. But who can ever forget the streets of Rose Center Road leading up to Horseshoe Drive? I remember it took us, what normally would take us probably about 10 minutes, or what would take us only a couple minutes to get down a mile to 2 mile stretch, would take us sometimes 5 to 10, even sometimes 15 minutes as Dad would creep along these roads. And I can never forget this tree right here. And the reason I can't forget this tree is, number one, there was a pathway going down here to our very first bus stop when we were in elementary. But this tree has a lot of significance because it was right here that we had a tire swing tied to this. And I would go ahead and with Chris Babin from over there at that house, we would always play down here, and there was a little tree fort up here. But I remember I would spin around in this tire, and I had a cast on, and at one time I tied myself up so much in the tree that I was hanging because I couldn't hold my balance on my one foot. And I remember Chris Babin went up to the house at the time, and you really can't see the house from here because of all the trees and the leaves and all that, but I remember he went up there and he said, Mrs. Boynton, I need a knife to cut your son down. And she came coming out looking for me, and I remember yelling at her, Mom, Mom, Mom. So in a sense, Mom, you actually saved my life at one point. And we will never forget our house here on Horseshoe Drive. Never forget it for anything. And it was definitely a house that Dad and Mom built, you built together, and we'll never forget that. It doesn't look like they are home, otherwise you better believe I would want to get in there. But hey, when you can talk about it outside, that's better than nothing at all. There were so many memories inside this house and so many memories outside this house. How can you not forget mowing the lawn? There's a lot of lawn here, and I would bring up the fact that we did a lot of weeding, made a lot of money, in fact, to weed, but the flower beds are gone. and they're not apart anymore right there. But you don't have to go up and down and do the gravel anymore, Dad, because they paved this. They probably said, who in the world would ever drive on this road without it being paved? But the biggest two significant things I think in this house was that, number one, that Dad, you always had a sense of pride by heating the house through burning wood in the wood burner, but our Saturdays were taken up by hauling the wood, and sometimes we liked it and many times I resented it, but now as an adult and realizing what your intentions were, it's not so bad. But I'll never forget that. A lot of memories of doing that. And Mom, a lot of memories also of you trying to get us to play softball, play catch, do a lot of things out here in the front, and who could ever forget a lot of the memories with the haunted houses in that house and a lot of things going on. But for the most part, the biggest memory to me that is most important to me is the night, Sunday night, when Dad, you led me to Jesus Christ in my bedroom. And that's something that I'll never forget. It's always built up in my mind. I've shared that 100 times with groups and stuff like that. But very significant. This house has been so much to so many things in my life, and a myriad of memories go through. But I just thought it would be fun to come. And who can ever forget the many Sundays we've driven our bikes here to this Deal's Orchard place on Sundays. And I know I'm cheating today, but we always come here and Sunday bike rides. But I'll never forget when we first moved into our house, we came here, and you knew these guys and you took us here, and ever since we've been coming here since. Okay, this was definitely our home away from home, here at the Turpinning household. That's right, a lot of things happened here, a lot of memories happened here, and Mom, after you got to know Aunt Julie through her accompanying you on the piano, and Dad created a huge, strong bond friendship with Uncle Norm, really proved to us how important it is to have best friends in your life, especially when you guys wanted to go on dates or go shopping for Christmas or whatever, or just wanted to spend time together without the kids. Obviously, we spend a lot of time here at the Turpinning household. Kid parties, donut parties, town club pop, and I remember I was young enough to have to take naps, and I would always nap back here at the room, and had the incentive with the Lifesavers. If I'd sleep, I'd wake up, I'd get a roll of Lifesavers. But beyond that, there were so many memories built up inside this house, but I would definitely say more than anything, the biggest example that you guys set for me was how important it is to have best friends in your life. Being with, and I'll never forget Uncle Norm working with Dad with the cars, and going on camping trips with them, and my memory was refreshed when Mom said when they were building the house on Horseshoe Drive, how we ended up staying here. And I remember staying in the basement as a kid growing up during that time where our house was being built. But once again, another vivid memory in my mind when it comes to you and Dad, Mom. The legacy started here at Union Lake Baptist Church. That's right. Here at Union Lake Baptist Church, a lot of memories formed for us because we basically spent the majority of our lives growing up here in the church. And your guys' example to us here in this church really became significant. There are a lot of memories during the services in this church, and Mom, you can never forget, you were always a part of singing up here in this pulpit to the church. And still to this day, many people that I see know that my mom, as Alyce Boynton will say, your mom had a wonderful voice. We loved it when your mom sang. And this is probably a familiar view to you on Sunday morning, Wednesday nights, and Sunday nights as well, when things were happening here at Union Lake Baptist Church. And I want to say for sure, Dad, the significance that you had in my life was when you took us on Tuesday nights that turned into Wednesday nights at the Awana Club's program. And it was because of that example that you wanted us to grow up in that godly environment and give us our own personal relationship with God. Here it all started. And that's why this is such a significant place to me, and I know to you as well, as you brought us kids, your family here, to have a relationship with God. And there's so many different places in this church that have such a significance in my life, and but there's so many things, so many memories. When I look at our house, there's so many memories, and the same goes for this church. There's so many memories inside this church, but the biggest thing is definitely you poured so much into my life, I know, into my brothers and sisters' lives. I mean, we can never forget. My two sisters were married here at the church, and so much significance comes with this church down memory lane. This is a place that I encouraged Mom and Dad to go ahead and go through with, because you guys wanted to know, now that the kids were out and I was graduating from high school and you thought that maybe I'd be heading out pretty soon, you didn't want to live in that big house at Horseshoe Drive. So what you decided to do is buy a plot of land, I believe, for $35,000, and once again build. You guys have something about building houses, and you decided that you were going to build in a house and live happily ever after. And so a couple years later, well, many years later, I moved out of this house. But this house has a lot of significance to it because, Mom, you went through your first bout of cancer through here. Dad, you went through hopefully your only heart attack. And there were a lot of things, especially as I got to know you real well, older and hopefully wiser, working and living in the house before I got married. So this is basically really significant to me and to you. So I definitely wanted to come here and share this memory with you. This vlog would not be complete if I didn't capture all the significant places that you guys lived in. And I'm sure this is one of those memories you guys would rather not remember, and we're glad that it was such a short period of time you spent at this place. But the place would not be complete without living at Marjorie. That's right, that house right there. Can you believe we all fit in there? And we put all of the storage, a lot of the storage inside the garage. And Mom and Dad on the first room on the left, where the windows is, I loved. That was probably my favorite room ever to live because I could reach everything from the bed. The room was so short. And I know there's a lot of significant meanings to Mikey and Lisa because they actually came to spend time with us when Julie was in transition or something was going on. But anyway, there are a lot of memories there in that house. And I remember actually at one point a couple years ago, it was for sale, and I was actually thinking about buying that house. But yeah, definitely that was a house that you guys lived in before a while the Juniper Drive house was being built. So yes, that's a very significant memory, holds a lot of memories, because I remember when we first moved in there wasn't much room at all. And that was one thing I think really made us appreciate space, and I know made Mom and you, Dad, really appreciate the affordability of being able to move in the house that you guys ended up doing at Juniper Drive. So I don't know if your memory of this house, it comes back with where you're living at now, but yeah, this vlog wouldn't have been complete without going. And just want to bottom line say I hope you enjoyed the tour. I know you can't turn back time, but you can always relive the past, and that's what we did just within this video. But I want to thank you once again for all your memories, all your sacrifices that you made for us, all that you did for us, and everything. And I'm sure that as we viewed this, that the other brothers and sisters thought of many memories that came up in their mind as we relived these places that were definitely significant for you guys. And I want to thank you once again for that legacy that you've left us of love. And it's an awesome memory, awesome memories for me, especially going back to relive those things. Well, unless you've gone to the house that never was. You'll know what I mean when you see this. Thank you for all you've done. Well, it has to start somewhere. And if my memory serves me right, Mom and Dad, this was the house that you once lived in. That you got married, when you were married, that this first house you moved into, and when the family was growing after I came along, I guess, was that your decision to build on Horseshoe Drive or what? But I still have a lot of vivid memories of this house, and I think your first house is significant to anyone, knowing that you have a safe place and what home really represents. And if this is not it, this could be it. I doubt it, unless they leveled the house and started new, but I believe this is the house that you guys first grew up in. So it just holds a lot of significance here in this house, knowing that this was your first house together, and you decided that yep, it was time to move. And I know that Mom wanted to move into the country of Horseshoe Drive, and that's what led you there. So it's a unique thing here, being on Buffalo Drive and knowing a lot of history. I think it was, and not too many memories here, but for me, but I remember Mom and Dad, you probably hold a lot of memories here, especially that being your first house.